for being here. We expect a couple of other people to come in during this presentation, but we're going to rock on with it. So good afternoon. My name is Denise Crossan. I am the Interim Director of the Centre for Innovation Leadership, and I'm also the Director of Community and Strategic Initiatives right now. I am delighted to welcome you all to the 11th annual SwatTank competition. We're really super excited to be able to do this competition. It is one of the highlights of the Centre for Innovation Leadership, something that we look forward to every year, because it engages students in ideas, in teamwork, and all of the things that we really love about being creative and innovative and showing your leadership in the Centre for Innovation Leadership. So this is our perfect competition. So for those of you who do not know, SwatTank is an ideation competition where students work in teams to identify a problem or need in the world, and drawing on some ideation tools learned along the way, with a lot of teamwork and a lot of research, and also alumni mentor support, stand before you all today to pitch their ideas. And while SwatTank is an ideation competition, it's actually much more than that, right? For students participating today, it's all about challenging themselves, and I hope you all feel like you've been through a process where you've been challenging yourselves for SwatTank. And you're all prepared to stand in front of your peers and pitch a concept for a problem that you may have only conceived a couple of weeks ago, right? And so at its heart, SwatTank is about asking you all to step out of yourself and your comfort zone, apply your rigorous and often theoretical knowledge to some kind of problem, because you want to create a change, right? And that's at the heart of what we're doing here for SwatTank. I think all of the teams at some point or other in this journey, as is always the case with SwatTank, realizes that, these things are hard and there's lots of components to it. And even sometimes just getting everybody together as a team on a schedule is a hard thing, right? The idea is the easy thing, and sometimes just getting it all and putting it out on paper and figuring out how all the elements of the idea works is actually the really harder thing. So I commend you all, the team commends you all, for working hard, always with passion, and embracing risk, because that's what we promote. And I want you to know that you have, through this process, learned everything you need to know to be the future innovators that we hope you will be after you leave Swarthmore. So we've already succeeded in this process, okay? We're delighted, right? So the teams know how the session will run, but let me just tell the group behind you, the audience that are here, so thank you. Each team is given a 5-minute pitch, and then they'll be available for questions and answers. We run all of the pitches concurrently, so there will be no break in between pitches. Once the teams have presented their pitches, judges will leave the room and deliberate for about 10 minutes or so you're all under pressure then at that point. Whilst they're out of the room, students in the teams will be asked some questions and a bit of reflection on the process, and the audience will be allowed to vote, right? So at the end of the process, we will be putting up a link to a poll everywhere, and you'll get a chance to pick your favorite presentation for cash. So the question and answer sessions are central to the SwatTank process, and rather than being questions and answers, we actually kind of like to think of it more of a conversation, right? So I want to help you with all the framing of these questions. We do not expect the teams in SwatTank to have in-depth market or product knowledge, or even to have a real detailed understanding of the financial realities of the business. I've been here 9 years. I'm telling Swarthmore to teach business studies, side plug, but we don't teach business studies here. So we don't expect you to know all of those things in a really in-depth way. The SwatTank pitches are judged on the team's ability to explain the problem, describe the customer, present the idea as a product or service solution, and give us a light touch on what the viability or potential of this idea might be. Right? Later, when we open up to questions and answers, what I would really like you to do is to think of how you can, participate as a possible team member. So go to the teams and say, have you thought about this? Or maybe this is a really cool idea as well, right? So it's being collaborative with us all. This is another way for us to support each other as a community and to grow. So let me get to the judges, because we have phenomenal judges always with SwatTank, and this year is exceptional judges, fantastic, drawn from our senior administration and also our alumni base. So I'm going to run through your very quick bios, if that's all right. So the first judge I would like to introduce is Claire Kiger. She is the Assistant VP and Executive Director of Career Services. Claire, give a little wave. Dr. Claire Tiger is an experienced career professional with a passion for promoting the value of the liberal arts education. She specializes in helping students identify and articulate their transferable skills. This is something we talked about at dinner quite a bit last night, about the value of this process. With over 15 years in career services at the University of Pennsylvania and international development consulting work in Morocco, she is dedicated to reducing barriers to access for underrepresented students and improve social capital and mobility. She holds a doctorate in higher education management from the University of Pennsylvania and has lived and learned abroad in the Middle East and North Africa. So thank you, Claire.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Our second honored guest is Karima Buchanafa. She is our very new Assistant Dean and Black Cultural Center Director. Karima is a highly experienced academic advisor and nonprofit leader who is currently the Assistant Dean and Director of the Black Cultural Center at the college. In this role, she works to support academic and personal success for all students at the college, while also leading the BCC in advising and advocacy for Black students and groups. She has extensive experience in academic advising and diverse teaching roles at institutions like Rutgers and Villanova University, and is committed to creating inclusive and respectful spaces for authentic inquiry and dialogue. Thank you, Karima, for being a judge this year. We really appreciate it. Lastly, we are very thrilled and honoured to welcome back to the college Omri Gal from the class of 2020. Omri is the founder and executive director of Design FC. He is a designer, a facilitator, and an educator focused on youth education and sport, and also design. He founded and is the director of Design FC, a non-profit teaching, creative thinking, and self-expression to youth project in under-resourced communities, using a technique to design unique jerseys that self-express and allow young people to find their way in life. You can talk more about it later, hopefully, Omri. Omri has collaborated with major sports organizations and has been nationally recognized for his work. He studied peace and conflict studies and psychology at Swarthmore, was a Eugene Lang Opportunity Scholar, and has since worked as a lecturer and facilitator at Stanford University's Design School. Omri has also experience in marketing, advertising, and currently manages a restaurant in Brooklyn. So we're thrilled to have you here, Omri. Thank you very much. All right, so, and I just realized I should have changed my slides, but there are our lovely guests that you can see in the corner there. SwatTank is a competition with prizes, right? So the prizes are as follows. In first place this year, we'll be awarding $3,000 to the best team. Second place, $1,500. Third place is $500. And as I said earlier, there's an opportunity for the audience to vote, and that award will be $250. Let me just say, before I pass over to my good friend Jennifer Barrington, some thank yous. You know, this takes a lot to organize. We've had an incredibly challenging year in the CIL because we're in transition. And so, you know, we've really pulled on all of our colleagues across campus to run this competition this year, and we thank you deeply. We partner with the Career Services, Jennifer Barrington, and I have been doing this for a very long time. Jennifer, high five. Right? And also we welcome Dakota Gibbs, who's one of our new program coordinators within the CIL, who's been helping us all. And you all know Dakota from dropping in past our offices. So thank you. And in addition to that, all the other folks that you see here, our speaking associates, the Writing Center, our alumni who worked with all of the teams. Dan Sacker of class of 97 was just fantastic as well. So we thank you all very much. So having said that, without further ado, I will hand you over to Jennifer Barrington, who will introduce our teams. Are you all ready? Woo! Thank you.
You guys ready? All right.
Yeah. So the clicker there.
All right. So this is going to be fun. Yes, we're competing against sunshine, summer, 2 months early, all sorts of fun stuff, and that's fine. These guys, I want everybody to know, We have had weekends where we spent in the library and it was snowing, and we've been there when it was raining because we had boot camps. So these teams have all put in countless hours, and you're going to see how much fun they've had with it and how creative they've been with it. Our first team is Sweeter. Rhodus Genteo, and Olivia Midiro Sakimoto, and Zimin Yuan. You guys want to come up? You're up.
Let's go!
All right. And just so you guys know, Sweeter is the Airbnb for productivity tools.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Olivia, and these are my teammates Rhodus and Ziming on my left here. Today we're going to be talking about Sweeter.io, but before I get to that, I want to ask you all a question. I want you to raise your hand if you have a Google account in the room, because I know that I do. I think everybody at Swarthmore actually has one, and the funny thing is that we get it for free through the institution, which means that there are probably about $50 per student per month going towards these suites, such as Adobe Creative Cloud, Google Suite, and others. But is that really cost effective? Is that really efficient? Do I use all of those applications?
Like, what do students actually need? Like a to-do list app, a calendar app, right? Look at all these amazing apps made by independent developers. Well, individually, they cost a lot of money. But what if I told you that you can get all these amazing apps under one subscription of just $10? That way, Swarthmore can reinvest that money into things that actually matter. Yeah.
That's what Sweeter.io does. So we provide institutions, organizations, and enterprises with tailored high-quality suites that cater to the specific needs. We also allow them to customize their own suites with high-quality softwares of their own choice.
But okay, I'm sure you're wondering, what would this product actually look like? So I want to tell you that it's going to be a browser-based solution that'll basically give you not only a marketplace, but also options for yourself. So if I clicked into the market, I'd be able to see recommendations for what my interests are, and I'd also be able to see subscriptions for the current plan that I'm actually subscribed to with different suites and options. But if I clicked on one of these suites, I wouldn't be able to just see the suite. I'd also be able to work with these applications integrated right into the Sweeter.io platform.
So you might be wondering, how are we going to make this possible? So our go-to-market strategy has 4 phases. So based on our market research, we discovered that over 67% of independent developers are actually struggling to find an effective marketplace to sell their products and reach their target audience. At the same time, over 80% of the organizations are usually facing software integration challenges and actually having a hard time finding easy-to-use, customized software solutions. So we believe that if we reach out to developers and also organizations through email and social media, we'll be able to invite them to join our platform.
All right. So now we have both customers and a marketplace. So what do we do next, right? So we have to make sure that the apps that are on our platform are like working correctly, right? So we go through a validation process. Like it will take about a week to make sure that these apps are working correctly. Then on top of that, we'll also do testing to make sure that the apps are secure, because you'll be handling a lot of sensitive data from these institutions, right? So, and on top of that, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be partnering with our partners, Vercel and Netlify. What they do is they're cloud hosting services to make sure that the apps are all working on the same platform and they're all running always.
So once we have an established marketplace, we have 3 sources of revenue. So if independent developers would like to promote their products, they can pay for search ads to increase their visibility on our platform. We'll also take a smaller proportion of the subscription fees to maintain our platform services. At the same time, we would provide users with cloud storage. So if they would like to upgrade their storage capacity, they can pay for a premium subscription fee.
All right. Okay, so now we're ready for the global marketplace. What does it look like right now? Well, we have a lot of these big tech company products like Google Workspace, Microsoft Suite, currently dominating the market. We here at Sweeter.io, what we're trying to actually do is we're trying to bring independent developers and their suites and give them a piece of this $72 billion pie. Because we do what all these other apps do. We have collaboration, we have all that good stuff. But what really sets us apart is that we're trying to make you only pay for what you actually need, right? And on top of that, we're also you're going to be empowering individual developers, right? You're going to be working with you, right? They're gonna be like going around like asking questions and then coming around, and then eventually you'll have a suite that you actually need and deserve.
So let's zoom out for a second. I would love to invite all of you to scan this QR code now and actually go to the Sweeter website. We've already launched the product and we're really excited to show it to you folks now. And I'd also like to tell you more about why this product was built for you. This is a marketplace where you can actually customize your solutions, but also empower other independent developers. What Denise said earlier about challenges during this process, very true. We overcame so many different things, heard a lot from different mentors and whatnot, and we just learned what we needed to do to solve the problem. Thank you so much. Woo!
All right, so we'll take questions from our judges now.
Okay, thank you so much for your presentation. I have, I guess, a kind of a simple question. You touched on this a little bit. So your product is certainly going to be competing with big, well-known platforms like Google. What are your thoughts? What is your plan for kind of generating customer trust in your product?
That's actually a good question. That's something we've actually thought about a lot. So I just wanted to give like a disclaimer that we're not directly competing with these big companies, right? What we're doing is there's a big marketplace, $72 billion, right? So like independent developers also deserve part of this like market space. So what we're actually doing is now we're competing directly, right? But we also make sure that we work with institutions directly to like go on like an onboarding process, make sure that the apps actually suit them, right? And they're up to stat. Yeah.
I think to add on to Rodis's point, I think as long as we maintain relationships with independent developers and establish that kind of connection between them, we can convey that to our customers that we are trusting these people. You can trust us because we trust them as well.
So we're not just we're like not really competing with Google. We're like big companies. What we're trying to do is that we want to provide customers with more options. So currently, these big companies are dominating the market, and they're stifling out all other small competitors. And that's why we're like providing Suite. We want to bring all those developers together. So like together, like in one, they can provide like customers with better solutions and at lower cost, and they can have like a larger and bigger voice in the market. That's what we're trying to achieve here.
Thank you.
How do you anticipate negotiating competitive spaces? Not that you're trying to compete with Google, but if some of these vendors don't want to be paired with other apps, and where they may see this as competing, or those new developers as competing for some of their own market share, how would you go about negotiating those kind of relationships and contracts?
It would definitely take a lot of coordination between all different parties. And I think to your point about the potential conflict and that kind of problem solving there, it would take a lot of kind of collaboration. We'd really have to listen to both the customers about what they want, both the developers about what they would actually be willing to do. If there are developers who are not willing to be contractually bound together by a suite, we would have to listen to that and then go to our customers and say, this doesn't necessarily work, but hey, let's look if we have another option with these other developers and find that we can solve the problem there.
Thank you all for sharing. I was wondering what you see as the biggest hurdle or potential threat to this coming to life, or sort of you're operating on a few central key assumptions, and if one of those doesn't go your way, per se, how are you thinking through that?
I would say the biggest hurdle that we probably face in the future is the technical side, because we'll be trying to put a lot of these platforms on our own server. So we need a lot of investment from the get-go. We need a lot of funding so that we can also we're a marketplace, so we want to attract a lot of customers early. We'll be giving discounts and everything, so that is going to be one of the hurdles that we expect.
I think one of the hurdles that we've also already overcome is that we've already found a lot of developers who are interested. So with the two-sided market, you have to be really aware that you'll build up one side of the actual market and the user bases before entering the second. We already have about 15 developers that actually want to build products and are interested in monetizing the things that they've already built. So if we can just establish now a stronger user base, that'd probably be the next hurdle that we'll get over. But this is kind of our option to launch it to you today, and that's kind of what we're doing right now. So it's exciting.
Yeah, so we'd also like to ensure that users have a really seamless experiences, like using sharing files between apps from the same suite. So there will be a technical solution to that as well. So we'll have to work on that to ensure that our suites can actually function like a Google Suite, in which user can drag files from Word to Google Slides in a really seamless way.
Any more questions from the judges? No? Okay, let's move on to the audience questions.
Any questions, guys?
No, thank you. Audience questions, please. Yes, over here. Are you gonna
I can also just shout. It's an awesome product. I mean, I feel like I would use it myself. But I'm really curious. I feel like I have choice fatigue, for example, and if I had to choose 5 different apps that I was going to use, I might feel what are the differences between these apps? Did you guys consider features to help compare the apps, and then also just make it easy, for example, almost like a bundle where you can choose a couple of different options and then start there and then build an add-on.
For sure. So we ended up trying to make sort of samples, if that makes sense. So there is this example suite, for example, with AI-related things. But once you actually click in, the idea is that you'd be able to either compare different apps and even build your own bundle if some of the things in there don't actually relate to what you're interested in. And at the same time, the bundles are expandable. You can actually build as big or as small as you would like. But the idea is that we're giving you the opportunity to kind of categorize yourself to make it a little bit simpler in the brain and organize what and whatnot. But we're hoping that these sort of sample bundles will be a good launch pad for people who don't know where to start and what apps to add first.
Can I follow up with that?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it's super cool if you guys could consider integrating AI as well into it, so that before someone uses a suite, they can go through a survey or something, and then you can give them an optimal bundle, and they can start from there, depending on their personality, what types of features they might like. But I really like
Great idea. Yes, we love it.
We will take a question from the team. Yeah.
Yeah, so I actually have 2 questions. I don't know if I can get to both of them. The first question is, I think you mentioned how you're going to be targeting organizations mostly. That's your biggest customer. So from what I understand, organizations usually spend a lot of time and effort and teaching their employees how to use specific suites, or teach how to use Adobe apps, how to use the Google apps. And that takes a lot of time for the people to learn that, right? So how are you going to convince these organizations to spend all of this effort into that to switch over to a new suite and learn all of these new apps from the beginning? Yes, I was wondering how you're going to overcome that.
Yes, that's actually a good question. And this is one of the things we discussed at the beginning. So we will have an onboarding process. So all the teams that are going to be doing all the work are from our side. So institution gets all the benefits of you get the new suites along with all the customer support. All the teams are going to help you onboard. And also, we also want to stress that we're going to be migrating a lot of people from Google Suite onto our platform. So we will have to make sure that the apps are kind of related in a way, right? Google Docs will have its own alternatives that's it's going to look and feel exactly the same way, right? It's going to be an easy transition.
Okay. Other questions? We have another one over here.
So since we've been talking about Google Suite and stuff, I know that there's a lot of interoperability between the different parts of that. If you get an email with an event, it can upload automatically to your calendar, that kind of a thing. How do you plan to given that you're offering alternative suites and more specialized things to people's individual needs, which I think is a great idea, how do you plan to maybe go about any sort of, do you have any like interoperability plans, I guess?
That's a good question. So I wanted to go back to talk about like how the server and everything works. So from the get-go, when we were doing onboarding of all the apps to our platform, what we do is we're going to be serving them on one server, and we're going to be partnering with Vercel and all these hosting companies to make sure that all the apps are in the same place, right? That's a good place to start, right? Now we have all the apps in the same place. Then we're going to be working with the developers to make sure that like you can make like transitions from like working on this app to working on this app, right? So that's one of the things that we will be including in our like bundle. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, I think we're wrapping up here. Do we have a couple of pressing questions real quick?
Oh, yeah.
I was wondering if you could say anything about the visual design inspiration you might have had for how you're displaying this, and maybe about what you hope the user feels like as they're using this. I just really liked this, how you laid everything out on the page, and I was wondering if you could speak at all about that.
Definitely. So I genuinely love design and trying to fix people's problems a little bit easier. The main point is that all of the suites you have will be easily navigatable on the left kind of bar. That way you can go to them at any point, even when you're in the marketplace like we are here. This would probably just be similarly structured to an app store that you've probably seen before, but at the same time, more options to expand these, like I mentioned earlier, so you can learn a bit more about your actual interests. And like Ziming mentioned about our monetization strategy, I wanted to include in our visual actual recommended ad kind of revenue ideas as well, in case we wanted to point that out as well. I think another big feature about this page is that you not only get a chance to explore, but also to see what is already in your plan. So, good stuff.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you guys, great job. All right, and next up we have Squad with Salmya Raj, Hojun Kim, and Dongkyu Kim.
Let's go!
Squad is AI-powered software as a service focused on saving lives by reducing response times.
Hello everyone, we are Squad. I'm Dongkyu.
I'm Samya.
And I'm Hojun Kim. 1,642,000. This is a number of people in Seoul who cannot be reached by a fire truck within 5 minutes, also known to be a golden time. And personally, this includes my friend Jiho, my cousin, and even my 90-year-old grandmother who lives in this district. But sadly, this is a very relatable concern that many Koreans share. And it's because, unlike Swarthmore, more than 28% of the entire Seoul road system is narrower than 15 feet wide. And it means that when there's a car parked on the side, it is physically impossible for fire trucks to pass by. This is a residential area of Seoul. Let's zoom in. Even more. Yes, this is a road that I see every day when I come out of my house. But in case of fire, these narrow roads with parked cars on the side, they become obstacles. And under this emergency, when every second counts, this is a huge distraction. And what you see in this video is a result of a fire truck not arriving to the scene 5 minutes. It arrived 5 minutes after the golden time, and it left hundreds of casualties. And again, this was caused by a vehicle blocking the path. Us Squad, we have one single goal, and our goal is to save more lives. And this goal is shared by thousands, every single firefighters in Korean department, even around the world. But there's a big obstacles. These parked cars that's blocking this narrow path has been there for 20 years, 30 years, decades, but we haven't found any effective solutions until now. And that's why we introduce you to Squad.
We want to provide software as a service that transforms the transportation industry by creating efficient communication channels. Our product consists of an algorithm that navigates the most efficient pathway for firefighters
as well as an emergency notification systems for civilians to move their vehicles out of the way, preventing personal damage. We do this, our dual approach system comes into play when a fire is notified. The algorithm automatically calculates the most realistic pathway for fire trucks, taking into consideration not just flowing transport, but also parked vehicles and road width. When the fire truck leaves, it sends a notification to car owners detected on the route about the truck's ETA, much like you get an Amber Alert or a weather notification. To make this work and leverage AI, we need 3 things. Access to surveillance footage, a government database containing license plates and the telephone numbers linked to those cars, and lastly, the government communication system that's already in place. So we need partnerships with the Department of Public Security to get access to traffic footage, the Department of Public Transportation that registers vehicles, and most importantly, people for their cooperation. So we find ourselves in this constant business loop of using analytics and outreach to better our service, to better serve communities.
We provide our software to independent fire departments across 69 autonomous districts in Korea. We want to build a strong relationship with our customers. Thankfully, Korean fire departments are easily accessible through their marketing teams. We're going to have face-to-face meetings with them to listen to their voices. We believe it is crucial to understand the unique and specific needs of each department. So we began our communication process, and here's one of our examples. We'll start small with pilot projects, city by city, and eventually expand and reach all the departments and hundreds of fire stations across the country. But none of this comes for free. Some of the major costs include R&D investments, but we're lucky that we don't have to install all of the surveillance cameras ourselves. We offer contract-based service at $10,000 per month per district. With 10 districts as our customers, we can expect about $1.2 million as our revenue. But this is just our conservative estimate because considering that more than 50% of our dispatches go to narrow roads, this is more than a great deal.
Our dream is to move far beyond Korea. Tokyo, Hong Kong, Mumbai, other Southeast Asian countries have the same problem of densely populated roads. Further, our algorithm can be applied to ambulances and the police department specialized to their needs. And independent businesses can definitely use a project like ours as an independent contractor. We want to save lives. Do you? Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. We'll take our questions from judges.
If I can start with a question, you mentioned that this requires the cooperation of not just local government officials and fire departments and health officials, and I can certainly see why they would all be motivated to get on board. But if it also requires the ability to notify your everyday citizen, how do you create the right incentives to get people to be able to be notified if they have their location turned off on their phone or their notifications silenced? Do you have thoughts about how to address that?
Yes. So the way our product works is it sends out an emergency notification, much like an Amber Alert or a weather notification, but it does so by having a license detecting software. We run using surveillance footage, and most of the countries in Asia have surveillance cameras in multiple points on the street, and the data is held by the government. So we run our algorithm through this data, through this camera footage to track the license plates, and we look at the National Registration Board to get the owner and their number, which is all public information already. And so we're not crossing any ethical boundaries in reaching their phone number, which we then message on this pre-existing government notification system.
Thank you.
So I do have a question. So thank you very much for the information you shared about just scaling to other countries. I think my question is more about any policy implications for your products. So, you know, it may be received one way in one country, but may be received differently in another country. How do you negotiate, across governments? And also, too, there's a lot of mention of surveillance and things like that, and that can be received different ways by different people. So also, how do you account for that?
Thank you for the great question. First of all, I would like to address that our goal for now is to expand all the 69 district, which is equivalent to state in America, which will take a while for now. And by doing this, we're gonna advertise the effect of how effective it was to lower the percentage of like fire trucks getting to having delay to international news. So by exposing ourselves and exposing our positive influence, I think we can change and can at least try to convince other countries who wants to save more lives. And I think that is the start of our expansion. And because everyone wants to like save lives and have empathy, they will understand, and they will, of course, they will have different policies, but I think we can talk and improve for the future.
And to add on to that, more of a technical aspect, we're using surveillance cameras that are already in place by the government. And so this data is already being used by them. I think the people are comfortable in the countries where they are. And even in new countries, we have in the West, we have drone surveillance. That's something we could use when we think about expanding to other countries, about sending out a drone to collect this information prior to making judgments and assessments.
Sort of just adding, keeping on the same thread. And thank you also for sharing. This was super compelling. I know you mentioned drones, but I'm curious to also hear, how have you thought about potentially pivoting if, for example, you don't have access to surveillance cameras or license plates? Oftentimes businesses launch with a key assumption and they quickly find out that it's not feasible. And so this seems like the core component of making this model work. So I was just curious to hear some of the other ideas that you were thinking through.
Yes, thank you so much. It was a core problem, and we defined it to be almost like a risk. But we soon realized that there is a startup in Korea that uses surveillance camera to build a smart stop sign. And because narrow roads are so intertwined, it's really dangerous for cars to just pass by and people might just pop up. So they were making this, and they were able to use surveillance camera to make this product. But also, even if we don't have the access to surveillance camera, we can use our technology to satisfy the needs of multiple apartment districts, because these apartments were built 30 years ago, and back then this parking lot system was not efficient. And so because of that, we are living in an apartment where when you come back from home, you don't know where you can park. And because we know which spot is empty, we can build a contract with these apartment complexes and notify their residents that this is the place that's empty. And by doing this, we're going to have money to pursue our government departments. Thank you.
Can I ask another
Yeah,
question?
go ahead.
I'm also curious to hear, is this a prominent concern in Korea? Is it getting enough attention? And what have been the steps that either government or police departments or fire departments have taken to address this?
We have like one mic, so.
Can you go to the slide where we have the screenshot of the email, the translation? The translation. Yeah. Okay, so earlier we showed you a screenshot of the email response that we had while we were talking to some of the fire stations in Seoul. This is like a translation of that. And the idea is that this is indeed a prominent issue in Korea, and firefighters try to work through their ways to resolve this issue. But as you can see here, I think, yeah, it mentions here that there's basically practically no other way they can do this because of physical limits. And the only way is to just call them by themselves when they arrive, which is very inefficient. And if you lose the golden time, something like the video that we just showed you happens just over and over again. So the problem exists, and they're trying, but there's physically no other optimal solutions.
Recently, Korea passed a law saying that the fire trucks can push over vehicles on the route. And that's part of what triggered this issue. There is a lot of personal damage if your car is being pushed over. And it's a long process to get any sort of reimbursement or compensation for that. So I think there is a lot of personal motivation from people's side to move their vehicles. They just don't know when a fire truck is is coming their way. So we want to make information about human-induced disasters available to everyone, because it's civilians' rights to know that something's happening and they could be careful of their belongings and help save lives in the process of doing so.
Final question. Because this is about solving a societal problem, how do you approach then the monetization of this in a way that is scalable and allows you to expand?
Yeah, just as how we want to serve the people, but through government and public systems. So we do expect to monetize it by the subscription program we present to governments. And I'll let Dongyu continue.
Well, in terms of scalability, I think it really depends on the specific needs and budget allocation by each district, or even by cities or countries, if we were to expand to other countries. We'll have to talk to each department. This is what we mentioned about customer relationships. We'll have to talk to them face to face and talk about what are their needs and discuss what are the spendings they have, because what we want to do is to provide a service that can reduce spending, like unnecessary spending that both parties would have, but we can reduce that and turn it into our revenue so that we can build better software, better solutions, and we can expand into other cities as well.
And I'll just answer it. And about using the revenue, we are more than willing to put our revenue into new, like for expanding new districts, because that's our goal, and because we don't have to install surveillance camera for most areas, we have that massive profit that we can reinvest and get better and collect more data to improve our system. And that's how we're going to expand globally.
Okay, now we have time for audience questions. Anybody out here? There's one in the far back.
All right, so I really like the idea. There was just one point of confusion for me where I was just kind of wondering, with your algorithm, does it take into account people moving their cars out of their way from the Amber Alert? Or does it consider the fact that this may or may not have, like an individual may or may not move their car?
So the algorithm takes into consideration the fact that the individual may or may not move the car. So it navigates the route for the fire truck with the number of cars that are parked in mind. It finds a route with the least number of cars on the way, and then it chooses that route and sends a notification for people to move the cars out of the way. And we hope that as we get more data analytics of which sections of society are more responsive, we can use that data as another source of predicting how many people would move their cars.
And to add on, if you look at this is the app the firefighters would use, and the orange square means there's a car, and yes, the Y means that yes, the owner has responded, and no means they did not. So it'll automatically predict and try to navigate the fire trucks to follow the path that we think is the best. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Other questions? Okay. All right. Thank you very much. SWAT. All right, our next team is Comma. Comma offers access to e-books like never before. All right, and Comma is Anhad Singh, Aaron Dubois, and Nana Asante.
Okay, unlimited books, unlimited access, anytime, anywhere. Let me say that again. Unlimited books, unlimited access, anytime, anywhere. I'm Anhad.
I'm not.
And I'm Aaron. Meet Joe. Joe makes roughly $18,000 a year. Like a billion others, he enjoys reading online. But after paying for food, rent, and clothing, he rarely has enough money to indulge in his favorite hobby legally. Instead, he turns to pirating sites like Z Library and Library Genesis.
Well, not any longer. The FBI took down Z Library in January, and Library Genesis will likely meet the same fate too. Now Joe has to find a new legal option to satisfy his reading appetite.
Joe first turns to popular e-readers like Amazon Kindle Unlimited, but quickly learns that he does not want to pay $20 per book on top of a $10 subscription fee.
Joe next turns to online library services like Libby, but he's left unhappy again because he can't access any of the books that he wants.
On Libby, you can only access the ebooks available at your local library, and you can't access anything from other libraries. Plus, your local library actually has to rent the ebooks that you see on Libby, creating additional costs for your underfunded library.
As of yesterday, there were no options for Joe to turn to. But today, we are introducing Comma.
Comma is a streaming service much like Spotify, but for ebooks.
Our free users have a digital library interface. As you can see on this graphic, they will be able to borrow and hold any book, much like a physical library from Comma's collection, which will be the largest in human history. Our free user experience is supported with ads.
For just $10 a month, our premium members get all the same benefits as a free membership, but they can read any book at any time. This means they never have to wait to access an ebook, and they'll have more legal instant access than ever before.
Now I get it. You may have a few questions. For example, how can Comma be this amazing?
It's simple. We make libraries our partners and generate revenue for them, rather than being an additional cost, like Libby.
We achieve this through controlled digital lending, which allows libraries in Comma to scan a physical book and lend the digital copy online. In order to follow fair use policy, we must maintain a 1-to-1 ratio between the physical and digital copies.
Now there's two ways that libraries can partner with Comma. In each case, libraries are going to receive a percentage of the revenue that their specific copies generate.
As a principal partner, libraries send books to Comma storage facilities. Comma then lends digital copies of those books to our users. Libraries throw out millions of books every single year, so this would be a way for them to generate revenue on books they would have otherwise thrown out.
As a unified partner, libraries can keep their books in circulation. Comma will then lend these books out digitally only when the physical book has not been checked out.
Now, if someone wants the physical copy, the librarian will first check with Comma to ensure its availability. Through this model, libraries can now earn revenue on copies that are still in its circulation, while of course accommodating fair use policies.
Through our partnerships, libraries will benefit from their underutilized books, and voracious readers everywhere will finally have a way to satisfy their appetites.
Now to summarize all of this, Comma is offering the most access to the widest selection of ebooks by partnering with a network of libraries.
Now let's discuss how premium members can access any book at any time.
So if there's a copy that's running low in our digital inventory, Comma will proactively purchase additional physical copies of the book and create new digital copies to ensure that our current titles never run out for our premium users.
If a title is not in our collection, a premium user can request that it be added, and Comma will swiftly purchase it.
With this level of service, we're confident that Comma's user experience will be unlike any previous ebook experience. And as Nana will explain, there's a huge market for what we're offering.
There are over 1 billion ebook readers worldwide, and tens of millions of Joes among them. With a little funding and support, Comma is one of the few startups in this competition with truly billion-dollar potential.
Comma is not just a clever idea, but a groundbreaking, profitable business model designed to empower libraries and readers globally in achieving their literary dreams.
If you want to be part of the revolution in book accessibility and help create a more literate and educated world, then vote Comma.
strategies. Over to you.
Well, that was really fun. Which is tough to follow up saving lives with fun, but so thanks for making us laugh. My question is around costs and scale. So you mentioned that you would need to you'd have a space where libraries could send books, which means you presumably need a space. And do you have more than one space as you scale? And then and you've also, how are you dealing with issues of space capacity, staffing for scanning and digitizing all of these volumes, and mailing costs and materials?
Yeah, that's a great question. We actually wanted to get to that in our presentation. So I'll just cover the entire growth plan in general, and then we can dive into the specifics. So in general, we're planning on targeting people in Western Europe, specifically young adults, because that's the fastest growing demographic in the ebook market. For example, countries like Germany have had a 50% annual growth rate. So 3 years out from launch from our app, we're actually projecting a profit margin of nearly 30%. So Aaron is going to help me break this down.
Sure. So between cloud storage and legal expenses, and also including things like the warehousing, we project around $3.8 million in cost 3 years out from launch.
And once again, 3 years out from launch, we expect to have about 500,000 members, with about 10% of them being premium members. With this estimate, we would generate roughly $5.4 million in revenue. And so you can see here, this is an itemized list of what our expenses are going to be, what our revenues are going to be. So you can see that includes logistics, which includes warehousing costs, transportation costs. It turns out actually that a lot of cities, for example, in Greece or countries like that, cities like that in Europe actually have pretty low warehousing costs. And so we would actually not need that much. We would actually not have to spend that much to be able to store a lot of books. And also about storage, if you go back to our slide about the different partner models. Yeah, so we had two types of partners, right? Our first partner is the principal partner, where you actually have to send the books over to our storage facilities. So that's going to be one part of the business model, which we don't expect to be that expensive, and we could actually outsource a lot of that effort to a lot of supply chain companies. And the second part of our model is the unified partnership, where you don't actually have to send the books to our storage facilities. Libraries can keep circulating those books within their system, because it turns out that actually around 60% of the books in libraries rarely get checked out. A lot of them just end up sitting on the shelves, they're just waiting to get checked out. So through this partnership,
They're lonely. The books are lonely on the shelf.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And
I was in McCabe about a week ago, and I picked out a book, and it had been checked out once since 1990.
Yeah.
You showed it some love. That's good.
Yeah. So that's nuts. And so basically, the library is gonna be digitizing some of their books. Now what's actually gonna happen is that a lot of libraries already have a lot of their books digitized for their own personal use. And in addition, if there happens to be a book that's not digitized, all you have to do is make one digital copy of that book, and then you can create like whatever copies you want based on how many physical books you have. So say you have 100 books of Percy Jackson in the library, you just have to digitize that, like one copy of that book, and then make 99 more copies of that. And that will be fair use, because you have 100 digital copies corresponding to 100 physical copies.
The thing about copyright is copyright protects works but not formats, right? So as long as the work itself is there, it doesn't matter what format you present it in, because it still represents the same thing.
I have a follow-up here. So how do you convert the physical copy into a digital copy in a way that provides an optimal digital experience? Because if you just if I take a book, my copy of Percy Jackson, and I put it on the copying machine, and I scan a PDF of that, sometimes like the flash will be off, maybe it went too fast, it'll cut off the top, it looks like I'm reading a bunch of photocopies. So
actually, take this one.
Yeah, sure. So essentially, there are two different ways that e-readers charge people to read their books. One is they purchase directly from the publishers, and they charge a per use fee for the work, which is a lot more expensive than CDL. But with CDL, to answer your question, you convert the book and you scan it in, and then you can read all of the text and convert it to this regular format as you would see in a regular ebook. So you're not actually seeing a scanned in picture of the book, because that user experience would not be better
No.
than Amazon Kindle.
No.
So thank you so much for all of this, and thank you for using my second favorite piece of punctuation. My first favorite is the semicolon. So, but
That's right.
there you go. So I'm just curious. I have a little bit of a scenario. So let's say that I am a very small, understaffed library. Like, I'm the librarian, and I have maybe one assistant, but I have the one book that your customers have been clamoring for, right? But I don't know that I have the time to go get it and ship it to you all so that you can have it. How do you reduce my number of pain points so that you can meet your customers' need and also develop a great relationship with me and my small staff?
Sure. So we actually are going to operate, if you go to the Better World Books, there's a company called Better World Books right now, and they work actually with Swarthmore Library and a bunch of other libraries throughout the world to offload those books from them that libraries no longer want. Because no one's reading these books, they have limited space in their library, but these librarians don't want to waste the books, right? So they send it to Better World Books, and Better World Books actually pays for shipping, they pay all the costs, like we were saying, all the pain points for the librarians. So similarly to Better World Books, we would also take care of all the pain points for the librarian, and we can still have an insane profit margin because of CDL.
Yeah, so I can explain how the profits here would work. So right now when Better World Books ends up selling a book that they got from, say, Swarthmore Library, Swarthmore Library will get about 5 cents on that book, which isn't that much. But with Comma, because we have a recurring revenue stream and that book is being read is getting read by a lot of people, and we're generating our revenue through ads. On average, the library would make about 1 cent per book per hour. And that hour basically means, during how many hours does that book get read for by all the different users in a year. So a book could get read from like 10 hours if it's pretty bad, all the way to like 5,000 hours in total in a year. And so based on that range, a library would make roughly 5 cents to $25 per book per year. Now, on the worst case scenario, the library is making the same money they would have if they sent the book to Better World Books. But on the best case scenario, that's a 500 times improvement on what they would have made from Better World Books. And that's in a single year for a single book. So yeah, there's a lot of incentive for libraries to actually partner with us and work for us, and we plan on expanding.
So I could make enough money to hire some more staff.
Exactly, so, and work with us even more, yeah.
Thank you.
This is super compelling, so you have my wheels turning. I'm curious how you would convince someone, like I'm gonna create someone, okay, so basically someone I know in New York just got a public library card and now has stopped using Audible because the access to specific, so audiobooks and ebooks, they have the exact same catalog, have a vast network of books, and can do it for free. So if I'm someone who doesn't really care about the added cost to the library, I'm caring about my pockets.
Yeah.
I have everything I need. Why would I want to switch to a service like this?
You want to?
Sure. So when we mentioned our user interfaces, we mentioned that we have a free level. That free level is supported by ads. They're non-intrusive. It's just a way to help lift up the costs. But I think that would be exactly the market we're targeting. So we mentioned Joe. If I go to this one, this is basically who within our customer segment, who exactly we're dividing it into, right? So our number one people are people who can't afford currently what's on the market. They want to read these books, but the price is disqualifying them from doing so, right? With our free user experience, we hope that this will enable them to actually be a part of the market and participate. As far as the libraries go, I'm sure your friend in New York would also like access to books that are in Seattle that may not be in New York, books that are in Texas that may not be in New York. And so this will actually be an extra incentive for them to join Common as well.
Yeah, just to add on to that, like the way that friend would be accessing books through that library would be through an app, maybe something similar to Libby or something like that. And so what we're actually doing is we're partnering with libraries first so that they reduce their cost. So eventually, because once they see like the profit margins they would be making with us, libraries would move off of Libby and start working with us. So that friend of yours wouldn't be able to use Libby anymore for that experience. The library would be working with Comma because of that better experience and the better revenue margin. So yeah, we're basically directly competing with taking off people from Libby.
Okay, we have to move on to audience questions now. Can we have some audience questions, please? Back here. The mic is coming up.
Love the product, and Nana, I'm excited to talk next week more about it with you guys. But yeah, I was really curious about the circularity of like a book. For example, we know Prince Harry, when his book came out, Spare, everyone was like, oh my goodness, like I want the book right now, but probably the book will drop in popularity kind of as time goes on. And you guys have to purchase those physical copies to kind of, for the demand, especially for premium users, to want 24-hour access. So I'm curious what you guys are thinking in terms of kind of counteracting that type of force in terms of people's interests coming and going, and then how you guys are going to take care of the books afterwards. So like disposal or how to make sure that you store those books logistically in a good place.
Thank you, Alice. That's a really good question. So as for demand, like we said, if a book becomes very popular, premium users can request that we purchase more, and we'll do that to keep up with the demand. Our feeling is that over time, book popularities kind of level out to a predictable level. For example, I'm pretty sure Percy Jackson hasn't really necessarily changed or spiked in many, many years. Maybe outside effects like the fact that there's now TV series could cause it to increase some, but we could also account for that as well. Once a book level is at a consistent popularity level, what we'll do with the books is we can honestly transfer it to a similar model to Better World Books, where we simply dispose of it in an economical fashion. So it could be turn it into recyclable cardboard, good for the environment, things like that, or simply sell the books that we no longer need. And so that way we're not keeping up with unnecessary inventory, and we can also have enough room for other books that will also probably rise in popularity during that same time.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, we had a question. You had a question?
All right, so I just had a quick question. The idea is really great, and I think this could work. So but my question is I think about books, and the first thing I think about is Amazon, right? Amazon started out as they sell books online, right? And since then they've pivoted. Now they're dominating the world basically. They're a $1 trillion company, right? So yes, they've been in the business of selling books online for more than 20 years now, right? So they've tried everything, and the best that they could do is $10 per month. And then, okay, now I feel like you gave us something that's feasible. Amazon is best equipped to buy you or overthrow you, right? And I'm thinking, I don't even need Amazon doesn't even need libraries. They have all the books in the world. They don't have to work use libraries or work with libraries, right? They can flip a switch. You know how
What's the question?
So the question is how are you gonna stop Amazon from? Are you just gonna sell to Amazon, or are you gonna be competing with Amazon basically?
Sure. So obviously we could sell to Amazon as an out eventually, but to maintain our own integrity, we could also rely on the fact that Amazon has not yet actually tried CDL. And if they did, they would actually have to acquire all of those physical books themselves. So that even though they have digital copies, they're currently going through the publishing route, which is much more expensive than CDL. So they would have to actually network with the libraries in order to achieve that many physical copies. So they really do not have that much they don't have a head start on us in terms of the warehousing, or they have a head start on the warehousing, but they don't have a head start on the logistics or the implementation. So essentially, if they did see the idea and they did want to copy it, there is a little bit of argument, you could say, where Amazon is somewhat equipped to take over us. However, there's a lot of different implementation features that we have that are more optimized than what Amazon's currently working with.
Thank you.
Great. So we have to wrap that up. That's it. And did you?
I just have one final thought.
Okay.
I want to add on to Gary's that Big companies have inertia, and it's very hard for them to pivot easily. We're small. We can very much go faster than Amazon and move quicker than they do. And I think that'll be advantageous for us if we end up competing against them directly.
Jen, we just have one.
Yes, go ahead.
question.
Judges are allowed.
How much time does it take, do you predict it will take from request to acquisition if you do not have a physical copy of the book in hand?
This will take an extremely short amount of time. Or do you mean to request?
So let's say you have to work with your library, you don't have it in the warehouse, you get a request from a user who says,
Yes.
I want a physical copy of this book, or I want a digital copy, but you don't have a physical copy, so you have to get that first. So time from request to delivery of service.
Well, so the titles we already have, we plan on proactively purchasing before we run out. So there should be zero time. Like they should almost
for
never.
when you don't have
But
them.
for the new titles, we're planning on purchase directly from publishers. So in that case, it should be just a few days before we purchase it. And eventually, as we scale, we should be able to get that down to just minutes. Because in reality, all we have to do is buy the physical copy, and then we just have an employee scan it in, and we've calculated that out to be about $11.
And how long does that take? If I have a 500-page novel, how long does it take to turn that into a digital copy?
It takes about 2 hours.
Oh, one more quick question. We're sorry. So, how much does this cost per month for an individual?
We said $10.
$10.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Also, one last thing real quick. Just one last thing real quick. Go to the last page. Yeah, we have a quick question for the audience to see who was paying attention. Almost there. 1 second. Okay, so we want to ask you guys, how many times did you see Joe during our presentation, not including this slide? Whoever gets the right answer is going to be the first person to get a free comma t-shirt outside of our team. So, high stakes here. Any guesses?
7.
That's wrong, but good try. Not safe. No.
Has to be in the audience.
8? No, it's not 8. Sorry. 11. Not 11. 20. Not 2 either. Not 25.
13.
Oh,
you're close.
13 is close. 14. Hey, you got it. Okay. Good job. 14.
All right, thank you. Final team to compete is Travial with William Huang, Nader Alamadou, and Gary Chen. Travial, the ultimate trip planning app that takes care of everything so you don't have to.
So, travel broadens the mind is a notion that has been engraved into the human consciousness. And the greatest testament to that is made clear by the fact that the travel and tourism market globally is valued at over $1 trillion. But this hasn't always been the case. In ancient times, travel was a privilege reserved for the wealthy elite. Then came the Industrial Revolution, which made travel far more accessible, leisurely travel became more common, and the first travel agencies were created. Then comes the internet, which empowers travelers to plan trips completely on their own, largely due to expanding availability of information and also facilitating direct access to vendors.
However, the convenience of modern age also came with the problem of modern age. All of a sudden, there are way too many options. The abundance of options can oftentimes be overwhelming, leading to what's called the paradox of choice. This concept is popularized by psychology professor Barry Schwartz, who happens to be a Swarthmore psychology professor. He suggests that when travelers are faced with too many options, they will either give up planning altogether or regret about their decision because of the high expectation. If you also share this kind of stress, you are not alone. A user survey suggests that more than 40% of the users are stressed about trip planning, and more than 70% of them missing important details along the way.
So travel does indeed broaden the mind. It can broaden it to the point where it explodes, quite literally. So here we offer our solution, Travial. Travial is all about making travel trivial. You don't have to make any decisions in order to go out on a trip. You just have to decide that you want to. And if you are an adventurer who wants to go to some city and you don't know precisely what city you want to go to, then you can simply just tell us that, and we'll generate for you a full itinerary that includes activities like shows and concerts. It includes lodging, like hotels and Airbnb apartments. It includes meals and restaurants and food carts, and it also includes transportation. You don't have to make a single decision throughout this process, you just have to tell us that you're going somewhere. However, if you are, for example, a person with a family and kids and you're busy and you can't plan and you don't have time to, you don't want to take care of it, you can just tell us that you're going on summer vacation for a month and that you want your trip to be tailored around kids. And we're going to take care of all these details accordingly. So it's an all-encompassing service that gives you complete control over your itinerary, although we're generating it. It's stress-free because it requires 0 decisions or as many decisions as you want to make. You want to go to a certain place, just tell us that, and that's the only decision you're making. In order for you to create a trip, all you need to do is deal with a very simple interface. You're just going to go directly and you're going to create a new trip, and that's the one click, that's the one thing you have to do in order to arrive at a full itinerary. If you want to be more specific, if you want to be specific about the budget, where you're going, the kinds of activities that you want to do, then you can fill out an optional form that basically tells us what it is exactly that we should take into consideration when you're planning. You don't have to provide us for all the information in the trip, just the information you wish for us to know. Once you're provided with the itinerary, you will not lose your ability to control it, to be specific about what exactly you want to do. Once you're provided with an itinerary, you can say, for example, oh, I don't like this event. I want to replace it with another event within the same time frame. Better yet, I want that new event to be about music. Or you can say, I don't want my day to end at 9 p.m. today. I want it to end at 5 p.m. Or I want to change my hotel. And the program will take care of all these details for you and provide you with a new updated itinerary tailored to your preference. So then it's all about making less decisions, about consumers who are not overwhelmed. So how will we generate revenue in Travial, given that we'll be providing this service for free for our users? And for that, we're going to have 3 major revenue streams that we're going to come from. First of all, we have the third-party companies that will be charging for information. So how will we be recommending transportation to users, like flights? Well, we'll be talking to American Airlines and getting information from them. And for every transaction that the user does on our platform, we're going to charge American Airlines for a part of their profit for the referral. Another thing that our app will allow is registering businesses directly with the app, such that you can actually have businesses try to advertise themselves by appearing on our itineraries and paying a fee for that. And also we get a part of, a commission of referral if we direct a user towards a certain business. So these are all ways we can fund Travial. Who are our customers? Who are the people who don't want to plan, overwhelmed by life? So, are you ready to...
So, who's ready to click?
Yes. And particularly a big shout out to Professor Wihar. I think this idea was first born about 1.5 years ago in one of Professor Wihar's courses, software engineering, and he was the first person to support this idea all along, and we worked on it in the summer. So just a big shout out to him today, in addition to our beautiful team.
Until the audience questions. All right, judges, go for it.
Just a quick clarification.
Oh, sorry.
No worries.
Into that.
Yes. Can you go back to sort of your business model?
Oh, yes.
Slide. Do you mind just diving a bit more into that? I was having a bit of difficulty understanding, and I know we were sort of rushed. We were getting the stop sign over there. So
Yes.
if you just briefly go over that again, that would be really helpful.
Absolutely. So how do we exactly do we plan trips for users? So what we do is that we go to companies who have data, information about what events are happening out there, what hotels exist in certain vicinities. And we collect this data from other companies that provide this data through already established systems they have, APIs mainly, and they charge you for it. So Yelp, for example, is a website that has a lot of information about restaurants. If I want to provide food in my itineraries, I can go to Yelp. Hey, this person is going to this place. Give me all the restaurants that they could go to, and I could then use that information to plan the person's itinerary. So every time Yelp, gives us information that technically costs money, but also every time someone tries to book a reservation on Yelp through our website, or because we referred the user to Yelp, then we can get a charge, or we can charge Yelp a fee for that and actually get part of the profit. So we technically will basically be generating more, we'll be directing more traffic towards their websites and charging them for that, because now people are traveling through our app and are linking with them. So this is one avenue stream. The second is, if you're a business, you can go to Travial and you can register yourself with the app. And you can say, oh, I want to advertise myself more. I want to show up more on the itineraries of people who want to travel to this location, for example, because that's where I'm at. And you can pay a fee for that, such that the probability that you'll appear on the itinerary of ours will increase. And a second way of charging businesses as well is, if you are a restaurant and you're not on Yelp and you want to link directly with us and have a reservation be done through our app directly, then we also charge you a fee every time we have a user, for example, reserve at your restaurant, so on and so forth.
Sure, and so, I guess honing in on the Yelps, the SeatGeeks, etc.
Expedia,
yeah. Why? These are all high traffic sites, and so are they looking for more users at the cost that you're providing them with? So could you just talk a bit more about what, like when you say a commission, what does that commission look like, and at what point do you feel like Travial will reach a significant user base to make it worth it for these big companies? Because if I'm SeatGeek, I'm not interested in a little bit of traffic. So where do you see, like what user number do you see the tipping point happening where you can actually provide value to the SeatGeeks and the Expedias of the world?
So our main service will not really be to provide traffic for those companies. It'll be to generate itineraries. So we're really getting attraction of users because we're having them make less decisions. There are people stressed out, people with busy schedules. That's the service we're attracting people through. If we get a big segment of the market who are interested in doing that, then users figuring out their trips on their own and going to Expedia to book the flights, then going to Yelp to figure out the restaurants, then going to another place to figure out the hotels, they will just get rid of that process, right? If someone is just booking a trip on our app, they have no reason whatsoever to go and use Expedia unless they want something that they couldn't find on our app. So overall, we're attracting really customers from a different base. We're not working with their same customer segment. We have a different customer segment that we're targeting. And we charge them a percentage per transaction. So currently, if you want information from Yelp, Yelp will give you a certain amount of requests for free, then it will start charging you money. But if you go into cooperation with them and actually sign some papers, you can agree on a percentage between you and the company that you'll charge them for transactions. So this is not specific. We don't have particular numbers in mind, but it will be a per itinerary fee. When the user chooses to at least pay money, that's when we'd be taking out the fee. But that's mainly the idea.
And just to add up, just to give more concrete example of like why Expedia or TripAdvisor want to partner with us. So basically, they already have open API that open for everyone, and they only charge on the token fee. And just to give like a more concrete example, the TripAdvisor right now they have free APIs. So no matter how many tokens we send to them, they will provide information freely. And then for other APIs such as Expedia, they will charge a little bit more. But like even like the GPT that we are talking about is like 0.0004 for 1,000 token, which is 1,000 words. So highly scalable, and all of our information and data will be stored on cloud. So it's a really scalable business. So yeah.
And the data is actually fairly cheap. You can with like a very small subscription, you can get about like 2,000 requests or 5,000 requests from each of these APIs. That's for free, and then you pay for each 1,000 maybe 1 cent or something. So in terms of search-wise, I can send 1,000 searches to facilitate, and that would cost me 1 cent. But one search is really enough for an itinerary.
So I have a multi-part user experience question. So forgive me, but bear with me. So I'm a user am I going to be exposed to ads while I'm using this?
So in our model currently, no, you will not be. The idea is to make the app less overwhelming, and so prompting you with more things you can choose from is kind of counterintuitive, but so far we haven't included that in our business model. But the idea is for you to go to the app and deal with a very simple interface. When you go to Expedia, you have many options, many things you can set according to your preference, and then you'll have to make a choice. And some people deal with decision fatigue, right? Choosing 5 apps for your suit is too much. How about 1 million decisions about traveling for a week when you have kids, right? So that's a very hard thing. So the idea is usually that you can book a trip with one click, quite literally. You can go to the app, click, I want to go to a new trip, and it will book you something on the same day that you request that trip in. If you want to be more specific, I want to go next week for a week, and this is my budget, and I want to plan under it, and I only want to watch music. You can also set those in a very simple form. So the form is, you can click on the form opens, it has multiple fields, you can fill whichever fields you want of those and leave the rest, so they're not required. And then we tailor the trip to whatever input you give us in that form. So the idea is to have absolutely as least decisions as possible. You're not hunting for the best deal, we're hunting for it on your behalf, and you're not seeing what it is exactly that you would otherwise think you're missing out on.
Thank you for that, because you kind of read my mind and eliminated the rest of the parts of my question.
Oh,
Because I was wondering, I said, well, if I'm exposed to all these ads, there's so many more choices, and then am I going to be changing like each thing that I click because I'm influenced by these ads? So thank you, that was a great answer. Thank
And
you.
another, by the way, follow-up is that the app does tailor to your preferences, so there's an onboarding survey where you can set some of your preferences. And you have to set them once when you open the app, but you don't have to make sure, you don't have to keep choosing every time. We're just planning according to what we know about you. You also get prompted throughout the app. So if you went to a concert that finished at 6 p.m., we might send you notifications. Did you enjoy the concert? Record that information and then adjust for later. So you're not sacrificing the particularity of your own preferences at all. You're just making it easier.
I have a question about variables.
Oh.
So if this is itinerary based, it's not booking services per se. So, me as the user, I click to book it. So as somebody who has a family, maybe I poke around in my lunch hour and I say, ooh, where are me and my kids and the hubby gonna go for spring break? And I have you all come up with an itinerary and I say, ooh, this looks great. I'm gonna take this home and chat with my spouse and my kids and we'll think about it. But in the time between when you sent me the itinerary at lunchtime and everyone says, oh yay, this is great, maybe the price for the plane ticket has changed, maybe it's sold out for the concert we wanted to go to, so how do you deal with the frustration that then comes with, it's like this is no longer available?
Yes. So that's a good question, and that's not very hard to check for. Usually, most of the things we request, so if I request a piece of information about Yelp, it comes usually with an ID number, which means I can return to the same piece of information again and ask about it. So before every trip, before booking the trip, so suppose you actually didn't book the trip, you just saved it. So here, you have saved trips, right? So you can save the trips that you schedule. So before you go ahead and book the trip, the algorithm can run through some check-ins that actually verify that everything is still available, which is basically to go back to your itinerary and make sure that none of the information about what we've retrieved before has changed. And if it has changed, then you can provide that with a replacement because we have a vast data set of things that could replace your flight or otherwise. If there are, for example, changes to the budget that we could not go around, if you've decided that instead of traveling tomorrow, you're traveling today at night and the only flight available is above your budget, you'll be presented with that option. So you will be notified with changes as they happen, but it's a simple verification process before any booking, which would happen before subscription, really.
Okay, we have to move on to audience questions unless the judges have anything else. All right, go ahead. Back here. Go ahead.
Okay, this sounds like a really cool idea. I had a quick question about how you're planning to ensure that, how are you gonna have, I see that you're partnering with SeatGeek, Expedia, whatnot. All these apps don't necessarily know everything that's going on in every part of the world. How do you ensure to be informed about very local, specific events, experiences people can have like all around the world, you know, in like remote locations, maybe even, yeah.
So that's a great question, and I think we addressed that through our two avenues of revenue here. So it's really basis on how these are the two avenues we're getting data and the two avenues we're getting revenue as well. So these websites cover a huge amount of spaces and information and data, but yes, they don't have everything on them. If you are a business and you're interested, for example, if Travel, you know, is known and you can, okay, I wanna register my business with it, then that's an added piece of information. Now I know about your restaurant, I know it exists. And if I want to recommend, if someone is coming around your restaurant, I can go ahead and recommend it because I have that, you've registered with me. So the app allows for registration of businesses, activities, all the information that we would get from SeatGeek and otherwise, people can insert it on our app themselves to either advertise it or share it with others. And this way we can have another avenue where we're not fully relying on other third parties to have information, but instead are connected to the direct markets we're dealing with.
That sounds like a great strategy. I was wondering, so this sounds like once Travio becomes, you know, well known and used, you're hoping that businesses come to you for their advertising needs. So they'll put their stuff on there, but you don't necessarily have access, for example, to reviews on these places. And so how would you, I mean, it's a risk on your part to suggest a place you don't have information about in terms of how well they do, how popular they are. But these businesses are going to be paying you money. So I was just wondering how your algorithm might handle something
Actually,
like that.
our algorithm how we choose trips now also depends on reviews. So reviews are baked into the algorithm that chooses things. So I think once you register as a business, your reviews are 0. But once people start visiting you and give feedback, then your reviews can increase. So reviews are baked into the information that we get and are baked into the information that we store about anything. So this is a part of it. But yes, you bring a good point about businesses. You know, there having been a certain point of outreach that might be necessary for businesses in order for them to be incentivized to register with us. But many businesses nowadays register themselves on multiple platforms like Yelp and otherwise. So I think it's become more of a practice. But yeah, the information that is provided now by Yelp, Expedia, and TripAdvisor is sufficient to create trips for you 100% of the time in the 10 most popular cities in the United States. It means that whatever location you choose in the 10 most popular cities, you will always get an itinerary that actually is full. If you go to unpopular places where this data is not familiar, this percentage drops, the itinerary that you get becomes less complete, it's missing certain parts. You want to do events, but there aren't any, we can't facilitate that, unfortunately. So knowing about more localized businesses would be helpful. But so far, we have a huge amount of the people, huge segments covered just by the Yelp and by the third-party companies.
Cool, thank you.
Other questions? Some over here?
My question is, so how do you kind of take into account a large amount of people at one time looking at the same thing? So like Miami in spring break, all of a sudden you have 5,000 kids who are all 22 who put in your algorithm, I'm looking to go to South Beach, I want to find bars, and I want the cheapest food possible. So how do you prevent like 5,000 people from showing up in like, the same exact place at the same time and then getting upset that your itinerary sent them to a place where they're waiting in line for 3 hours to get food?
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to put it. So it's I thought about that, and it's like 5,000 people could show up, and it's a disaster. So again, these are very logistical issues that are very easy to handle in the code. So currently, how do we do with data? So I ask for data from Yelp. Everything is associated with an ID number, and I have information about all the trips that I request. I save, right, because I don't want to request the same information twice. And then I save it with unique numbers. And the simple idea is that every time I'm using an event, I can just increment. I can say, oh, I've actually used that event 10 times. I used that event 20 times. And I can send a maximum of 30 people to a restaurant. Like, these are very easy limitations to set. Currently, I don't believe we have a working model, thanks to Professor Wihar and the course and all the support. So we still have a little working model, but it's not full. Doesn't have these restrictions in it. But as to how we can check if an event is overbooked, that's very easy to know because we have the event saved and we have its ID number and we know how many times we've used it.
Great, that's all we have time for. Yeah! All right. Okay, everyone, Denise is going to take our judges out. Folks, we're going to have the teams gather up here. There are some snacks at the back. Help yourself. We have about 10 minutes while the judges deliberate. I need all the teams up front. Back up. All right, so teams, we have some questions for you. All right, everybody up in front. Make room for everybody. Okay, so this was months of work, right? Stand with your team. Yes, stand with your team. There you go. Okay. What is the one insight you have gained about yourself through the process? And I'm going to ask Squad to answer that first.
I realized that I really love doing this while. Okay. Yeah, so one thing that I realized over this past month was that I'm really passionate about questioning my hypothesis, asking and collaborating with teammates, like asking yes and questions.
Yeah.
Because I was up until like 2 or 3 preparing and thinking about the questions, but I was not like tired at all. I was like motivated. So
you were motivated.
that's
Okay.
the one thing that I figured it out about myself.
Anybody else from Squad? What'd you learn about yourself? Biggest insight.
I feel like I've always known I'm a creative person, but what I learned about myself was that I can adapt to an idea and change what I think about a topic or what I want to do, and work with other people on an idea that we come up with together and all want to do, which needs a lot of compromise, and that I'm willing to meet them 1/3 ways.
Anybody else from Squad?
Well, that's only me left. So, yeah. So this is something that I knew already about myself, but I love to solve problems. And while we were working together, talking about hypotheses, talking about problems, it was really fun to figure out how to make this work in reality. And that was really a fun process and interesting. So that's something that I learned about myself. Yeah.
Excellent. All right, I'm going to have Kama go next on that question. Same question. What insights did you learn about yourself?
I think I really learned how much I love working on entrepreneurial ventures. It was really a blast, and we enjoyed every moment of it. Actually, when Aaron, Anna, and I met, we were really almost strangers, and then we just bonded over this idea, and we've helped bring it all this way. And it's been a really great journey. So yeah, it's been really good.
I would say almost the exact same thing as Nana. It is really enjoyable, and I look forward to working with them a lot more than a lot of my other activities that I have to do throughout the day. But specifically, it was like a nice thing that was enjoyable, but also it felt like it could be meaningful to work on.
Yeah, like the same thing both of these said, and plus, it was like an amazing thing to work on outside of class because it's like a project that you're working on for a really long time, putting a lot of ideas into it, and yeah, it's honestly pretty nice to like keep on revising the same idea until you have something that's really meaningful, like Aaron said. So yeah, I've liked this entire process a lot.
We actually have one document with everything we know about Kama on it, and it's like 35 pages long.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. All right, Travial, same question. What is the biggest insight you've had in this whole process?
Yeah, I guess I'll go first. So I think my biggest insight is realizing just how little I actually know about what I'm doing, and I think this experience has really made me excited because it's shown me how much I can still learn, and it makes me excited for the future.
Similar to William, I joined SwatTank mainly to just try to have an opportunity for me to build a product from the start to the end and knowing something, all the steps in between, and then there's something a classroom project wouldn't give you. And yeah.
Yeah, I kind of want to reiterate everything that's been said, and also I think I've learned a little bit about my capacity with obsession. So when you like an idea very much, right, you're obsessed about it, and sometimes it's hard for me to even get to implementation. I'm stuck into the phase of trying to make it perfect, and it gets to be too perfect in your head that it's hard for you to refute it in reality, and it's hard for you to explain it to others even. Like it's already complete in your head. When you're explaining it to others, why isn't it as complete? So I think it takes that commitment to your own thoughts and to your own psyche is one thing I'd say I usually learn about when I think about ideas I care about, such as this one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, and Sweeter, same prompt.
You have to turn it on.
What insights did you gain about yourself?
Well, like I really love entrepreneurship, and for a long time here at SWAT, this is like my junior year now. It was really hard to find other people who are also interested, and even like now that I've found out that there's a lot of support from like faculty, right? Professor Wihar is sitting right there. He's been really helpful in my journey personally. We have the CIL, right, and we have the career services, and a lot of people don't know that yet. And I'm just like calling it out to you guys, like if you feel like you have an idea, if you feel like entrepreneur, there's a lot of resources at SWAT. Yeah.
I think we definitely faced a lot of good feedback during this process, and I think something valuable that I'm going to take away is all of that information in my brain rattling around and making me second guess myself, but also the confidence that resulted from my sort of reflection on those pieces of advice that I received and that our team received. And I think going into this, right, we came in as a team and we decided that we wanted to do this together, and we got so close and we got so like intimately involved with this idea that we like know back and forth, but we also know that there are flaws to it that we will fix in the future. And it's these sort of hurdles that you go over when people pick at holes in your idea, and that was really valuable.
Yeah,
All right. Oh, go ahead, please.
So we're really been through a lot of different iterations of pitches. Like we change how we're gonna pitch. Like every time we incorporate some feedback from different audiences. So it's really fun to know like how we pitch idea really matters. Because a lot of times we pitch idea to our friends and they're like, we don't understand what this product is about, and that's like really frustrating. But then we like evolve, we like pivot over time, and we're like put everything up together. So I think that's a really interesting experience we had.
Wonderful. Okay, now here's an open question. Who is going to take some of what you learned during this process and apply it to your studies or future career? Who's going to use this in their future?
Hi, guys. Well, I'm a designer by heart, and I took that a step further and decided I was going to DIY my major. So the idea, too, is that I want to actually pursue this stuff and actually build something when I grow up. I don't feel like I'm grown up yet. So when I grow up, that's the goal. And I think this experience was sort of what we learned from the judges at dinner last night, this opportunity to just build something low stakes, this kind of beautiful chance to just showcase some work that you've put a lot of time and effort into with a community that really is there to support you and push you and lift you up. And I think this is my first kind of, we built this, and I feel like I can build something else now as well. And that's where I'm gonna take that.
Anybody else taking this into the future with them in their classes or their career? Yeah. Turn it
on. Wow, my voice isn't up. Yeah. Wow. Is it working? Here it is. So I'd say yes, I'm particularly interested. In fact, Professor Wihar also encouraged that idea of taking it further. I think many of our ideas can qualify for actual pitches in the outside world, and I do think that I'm graduating this year, and once Swarthmore is behind, there will be much more space in my mind to do other things. And I think this will be one of them, you know, at least even if on the side, even if I have a job and working on this on the side, it will certainly be part of it. Yeah, this is just a personal intention, and I'm happy that I've shared it now. Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm looking at more questions. Do you want to? Well, we'll wait. Not yet. Not yet. Has anybody found a skill that they want to go and develop more? Right? You're like, oh, I wish I knew more how to do that more. Oh, I need to take a class on that. Or, oh, I want to design something new. Anybody found something that they want to learn more about through this process? I seen heads nodding, but nobody's talking. Okay, here we go.
I think a lot of what we did is the ideation process. I think now I'd be very interested in actually implementing what we learned. So maybe that's a little bit more of business-related classes, or actually like real applicable skills that we can use our idea and follow it through until it's a reality.
Excellent, thank you. Anybody else find that this has sparked something new for them that they have an interest in, they never thought about before? Yeah.
Like I said, I have a lot of interest in entrepreneurship, but I've never really worked with other people. I just I have an idea. I just work on it by myself and stuff. And this is kind of the first time that I was able to work with other talented individuals, and it just felt like there is so much more support I can get if I go out and then meet people to work with, and yeah.
Rose, you forgot about working with me.
And Alice, of course. Alice. Yeah.
All right, any questions from the audience about, the whole process of SwatTank? Yes, back here.
Do you have any advice for future participants who might be in the audience?
Yeah, what would you tell future you?
You're gonna put in a lot more effort than you think you are. we were actually thinking that we'd be done within a month, and maybe it would cost us 30 hours. It did not cost us that.
Our judges are coming back in 1 minute, so we could do the audience poll then.
Okay, we've done the poll.
Oh, sorry, okay.
Yeah.
Come back now.
Yeah, they can come back now. Guys, if you, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Our judges have deliberated, and we are very honored that they will give some feedback on our teams, and then once they've given some feedback, they will announce the order of awards, and we will then also announce the order of the audience poll. So let's give a big round for the judges who have come back after deliberation. Thank you. And I'll let you go ahead with the order of feedback.
So sorry. It's I didn't have enough Cheetos, so my brain wasn't working. Sorry about that. So our first bit of feedback is about Sweeter. So thank you so much for that presentation. We thought that the products are really user-friendly. We really appreciated the choreography of the presentation. It was very, very kind of slick and engaging. The way you all were able to kind of move and trade places, and that really meant that each of you had to really know your product back and forth to be able to do that so well. We also appreciated the fact that you've already built the website, so it was great. I was able to scan the QR code and go check it out. It eliminated a question. I was like, how does this work on a mobile? And I was like, oh, it is working on a mobile. That's great. Some of the other feedback we had here was one thing that was a little bit of a concern was that both your team and your product seem more focused on the needs of the new developers rather than the users and possible institutional partners. So that's something that you might want to think about in terms of your marketing. We like the customizability of the suites that you have, the sub-suites. A couple of things, great content, great concept. What else do we have here? Your visuals were great, we really did appreciate that. Your price point, that was great. Might be a little bit of choice fatigue with all the different apps and things like that. But, again, we thought you had a compelling product here. Some other positives, very user-friendly, like the design of the interface, and the bundling suggestions were great.
Yeah, the only other concern to add is, or a next step potentially, is the importance of partnering with lawyers to deal with all of the contracts that you're going to need to negotiate for with these different partners and bundles. But yeah, great job.
So the next team that we'll be giving feedback to is Squad. Thank you so much. I think one thing that you all did tremendously well was tell a really compelling story and narrative. And with any pitch, no matter what it is, whether you're selling a business, whether you're pitching a nonprofit, like we talked about at dinner yesterday, the story behind it is absolutely critical. And I thought you all absolutely nailed it, and you had us hooked from the beginning. So fantastic job on that. I think you did an excellent job also of sort of parsing out each different element of the business model and making sure that you had well thought out answers to each of them that were also backed up by either data or evidence or some sort of like cultural context that we as judges may have not been familiar to. The slight a little bit of feedback on the actual design. I think personally I would have loved to see some more attention paid to the visual representation of it. I think that can go a long way in how people perceive you. Looks do matter, and so obviously I know that is not absolutely a necessity for something like this, but just an area that I thought a little bit more attention could have been paid to. And then, yeah, I thought you anticipated our questions extremely well and were able to provide really well thought out answers to what we threw at you. Judges, any other comments? All good?
Yeah.
So thank you.
All right, so next up was Comma. I would say you had us laughing from the get-go, engaging the audience from the beginning, that you sort of incorporated it all into a story, which was really compelling. Even the shirts are very slick, the audience engagement at the end with the prize of the shirt. So, very high marks for sort of presentation and marketing. It was also incredibly well researched in terms of laying out what the existing marketplace looks like, who the current providers of services like this are, what the concerns and barriers are in terms of pain points for customers. And so in terms of hitting most of the boxes here, you all did a really good job. It was very clear, easy to follow. So that was really fantastic. We do have some concerns or about better understanding upfront costs, and while this is not being judged on feasibility in terms of getting funding, it did seem like those were some pretty significant startup costs to get around, and some also further tweaking around what does the customer experience look like in terms of handling issues like some of the questions that were raised by the audience, if there are popular books or less popular books, or time from request to delivery. Even things like digitizing books, if it takes 2 hours for one book in a typical workday, you can digitize 4 books. So you're gonna need a lot of people to be doing that, and so further considering and detailing out what those costs and logistics look like, I think, is an important next step for you as you move forward. Anything to add?
Yeah.
All right, great. And then last but not least, we have Travial. Yeah. Woohoo. So we're gonna say one thing. We can
Sure.
just go in order.
I really liked the concept. I thought your stage presence also in presentation was excellent. I do wish there was a bit more, I think, substance or specifics. I felt like it was more of a theoretical and philosophical journey, I think, at times, as opposed to a real deep dive into what a user experience looked like. And I know you did touch upon that, but for me, that was sort of my biggest area of feedback. But again, I found it to be a compelling product, compelling story, and it touched a pain point that I'm experiencing right now, actually. So, yeah, I'll pass it on.
Yes, very intriguing concept. Also a fun presentation, so high marks for that. I will say, I think, in terms of understanding the variables there, again, a lot of that came up in the audience questions as well, is something to sort of think through in more detail, and would need to have more information around in ways that I don't think we do just yet. And a better understanding of some of the competitor market space. For instance, there's an organization called Amazing Co. that does exactly what you're suggesting, but they do the booking, so it's not free. But it's like, I don't know, I want to, but I want, it's everything from like afternoon picnics to overnight weekend things to murder mystery dinners. You tell it sort of what you want, how long you want, and like the fact that maybe you didn't know that existed tells me that you need to do more looking into the area, because they're growing like gangbusters. Yeah.
Yeah, just to echo some of what my fellow judges said, I think I would have liked to have seen more specifics in terms of like just cost, both in terms of like your startup costs and cost to the user. I did really appreciate the presentation. I felt like I was on vacation. It was very nice. It was very nice. Yes, that was some good user psychology that you had there. And I do like the effort you put into trying to address that paradox of choice, just by making things much, much simpler. I think that you achieve that in terms of what you're offering, but also in terms of what your possible user interface will look like. It was very simple. There's not a lot of junk. You said there wouldn't be a lot of ads. So I really did appreciate that.
Okay, so we're gonna move into the how does this all shake out in terms of our rankings, and I will just first start by saying Denise had to come out and pester us because this was really hard. I know all judges say that, well, there was a lot of debating.
Yes.
So all the teams are deserving, and you all did a great job. But starting in fourth place for us, we have Travial. So congrats to Travial.
Yep, third place. So third place is Sweeter.
I know, now it's like, second place goes to Comma.
And that leaves us with Squad as our winner of this year's
To add context to this, we were doing this under the advisement of, did you complete all the things you were set to do for this pitch competition, and not as much about, is this feasible or not feasible? That was not our charge, right? So bear that in mind in terms of, but congratulations to all. Of what you've done.
Thank you very much, judges. Thank you very much, teams. Well done. Well done. It's going to let you know the results of the audience poll. Boom. SwatTank for 2023. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming and participating. Thank you so much to the teams.
Yes.
Please go by, continue to see us in CIF. Thank you, judges.